Okay, we're up to middle of his base. So let's summarize here. So he's bringing here the psukim that Bilam says Benegea Eden. So there's the matziv, it traces it all through, and through all of the psukim, there's the distinction between Yaakov and Yisrael. So there's the matziv of pre-Avodah. So pre-Avodah is where Balak wants Bilam to ara Yaakov and to curse Yaakov and to bring rage, Zayama, to Yisrael. That's pre-Avodah. Which he describes the world as in a state of death, where the ''tשכ dusha are not elevated, are embedded in the world, disconnected. In that pre-Avodah state already, there's a distinction between Yaakov and Yisrael. Then comes the first nevuah. The next nevuah, he says the result of this, of the words of Balak, common curse and direct rage. And that is that Hashem will transform it all. In the words of Bilam, Mimon Afa Yaakov and Mispar Yisrael. So this has many meanings, and the meaning here is this refers to the ''tשכ dusha, that's the dust that are embedded in the world, in the earth, and they're elevated on Mispar Yisrael. Roiva, one of the meanings is quarter or four, referring to Ilam Atzilus, the bearer of Bia. Here too, the distinction between Yaakov and Yisrael. Then he goes on to the next pasuk, Oifen Havodah. The Oifen Havodah is Oven is associated with Yaakov and Omol is associated with Yisrael. So there's an Avodah that is a shaykhs to outright transgression, which is Oven. That's got to be negated. Even after that is done, there's a higher Avodah where the person doesn't contend with Oven anymore, but he does contend with Omol, which Rashi says means Aveda, but it also means toil, as Rashi explains, because sins cause God to toil unnecessarily. It's bothersome, quote unquote. And then what's the result of this Aveda, successful Aveda of no oven in Yaakov and no Omel b'Yisrael? That's in general Torah mitzvahs, which includes also tshuva, which has to precede Torah mitzvahs. And that leads to the Geula, Dorach Keichav me Yaakov v'kom shevet me Yisrael. That a star will shoot forth of Yaakov and a scepter from Yisrael. And then it concludes with Yisrael Oisech Choyel, Yidden will perform or do valiantly. When Yidden will, as it were, rule over the nations of the world, will be subservient to them when Mashiach will come. So to understand the whole, and here too, it's Dorach Koichav me Yaakov and Shevet me Yisrael. Again, the distinction between Yaakov and Yisrael, all the way from pre-Avodah, the state of the world before Avodah, all the way through the nature of Avodah, the type of Avodah, and the result of Avodah. So he began to explain in his base that Rebbe says, in explaining Hibit oven Bi'Yaakov, he does not see, doesn't look at iniquity in Yaakov and Omel B'Yisrael. So he explains, the reason is because the Darga of Yaakov is a lower Darga. It's a lower Avodah Avdi Yaakov, my servant Yaakov, Lashon HaPasuk. So the level of Eved, when the person is uninspired and he's doing it only because of the fear of the master, that's the basic level of Eved. right? Avde befkeda nichale, a servant would rather be sailing, right? Rather be doing what he wants to do. He doesn't want to do the avodah per se, but he's compelled. Kabbalah soil. So if the whole thing is Kabbalah soil, then there's the fear of temptation of sin. The pasuk says, notwithstanding that since the Hibit is with him, lo Hibit oven Bi'Yakov. As we said yesterday, that comes when a person does the avodah properly and when he gives his all, Hashem will help him to resist sin. That's the avodah of Yaakov, the avodah of Yisrael. So he's not such a yid, he's not shayches, such a matziv to the union of oven, of outright iniquity, but omel. So what is this toil that is shayches to the avodah of Yisrael, and there too, divine assistance, v'lei ra omel b'Yisrael. He started to explain, this is where we started to explain, this is a hemshach to the previous Maimer. This is the difference between the avodah of the weekday and Shabbos. During the week, Jews engage with the world, so there's the fear and the possibility of sin. Because that's the avodah of Evet. He doesn't have the avonda, the hasaga, the inspiration, only because of the fear of the master. So therefore, there is a connection and a chiza, a hold on the union of sin. And not only, as he says, does the Yetzer Hara in such a matzav just give his opinion, as in Zeh v'Zeh Shoiftan, the Dik of Alter Ben Tanya, describing the binary, that he's judged by both, judged as an opinion, but the binary successfully eclipses or does the right thing, eclipsing the Yetzer Hara. This is not the matzav over here. Here the matzav is we're actually fearful of not just the Yetzer Hara offering an opinion, but getting control. And here, so again, the divine assurances are violated. The Eibishter helps him when he pits himself with all of his koyach against the Yetzer Hara. That's what we're up to. Omnam. So up to the words omnam, right? Almost more than halfway down. Ois base. Yeah. Unmute yourselves, guys, to comment. Omnam. Klolos avodah, the general avodah ben Meisachel, Rak ba'ofen shel Hibit oven Bi'Yakov. So what's the avodah? The avodah, successful avodah, is Hashem doesn't see oven. Hainashem Meshia Mishofti Nafshe. He saves him from the judges because he never comes to the point where the Yetzer Hara rules. It's just a judge. They shouldn't have a rule. And that there shouldn't be oven by Yaakov. There's such a yid still has to contend in that matzav of ladayin yeshing in omel. He needs to toil. It's appropriate that he does. And what's the toil that he needs to do? So inyan avodas haberurim. This is avodas haberurim. That's the shlichus. Shai b'meis hachel ksiv. With respect to the 6 days of the week, the pasuk says, you should work 6 days and do all your work. A person has to be invested into this world of action, which is only a minority of it, or the smaller part, the mind is good, and it's dominantly a klipper. And to make things more challenging, the little bit of good and nitzutz kedusha that is in the Elam Hazeh is mixed with the majority. It's not clear boundaries. Vacha klippa is given by the lashon of the Eitzchaim brought in Tanya. The klippa gets the upper hand. Klippa dominates this world, so it's toil to extract the stuff, the nitzutz kedusha. L'chein tzarich lisin. Omal has to be the omal. So So again, this is not a default position. This is the shlichus. This is the avodah. This is the avodah of a person to his master. Has to be tzarich leisbeif. Shal avodah dafke. It's toil. It's work. Now avodah means to transform. Miloshen ibud oiris, the lashon of the Mishnah. It means from the Kotetayra, but it's a lashon in the Mishnah that to take raw hide and make it into supple leather, it's called ibud. Avodah, because avodah implies a transformation and also great toil. I think the diak here is the great toil. Shezoi avodah kosher. This is very difficult because you're changing it from hard leather to hide to supple leather. Vach nikras b'shem avodas perach, and the avodah Mitzrayim, which was the whole point there was to elevate the 202 sparks. It's called avodas perach. Usually translated as backbreaking labor. Sholazeh dorush omal godol. This requires a great toil. This is the avodah during the week. Amnam, however, b'yom Shabbos, on Shabbos, she'oz the din vaychul al shemayim v'aretz v'chol tzvam v'yechal alikim. So all of heaven and earth is completed, and all that is hosts, and God completed. The deeper meaning of the word vayechulu and vayechal is pirush shekol so b'chinas so madreges hatzimtzum v'hester v'yechal alikim. They ended. Elikim ended. The simple meaning is Hashem completed. The deeper meaning is that Elikim is completed, is over. It is done. That the avodah, in other words, we transcend this. We go beyond it. That the Elikim, which refers to the Tzimtzum and the concealment, the Shem Elikim, Shem B'riyas Olam, that Lamed Beis Pa'omim, it's 32 times. These are the 32 pathways Kabbalah speaks of. That Elikim, 32 times the name Elikim Shenemra b'Maisa Bereishis that is said in Maisa Bereishis. Also corresponds to the 32. We learned about this. The 32 strings of the tzitzis of the four corners of the garment, in total 32. Because the tzitzis, the strings of Amshocha in the world, which is why you have to be reminded, since we're engaged in the world and its temptations, you have to remember right there why we're here and not to get distracted. So that's all Shem Elikim. But that's over. A Yid on Shabbos is elevated beyond Avedis Habirudim. Shezayin Kisarisa in Melikim v'Manoshim v'Tuchal, that Yaakov was called Yisrael because Sarisa, you prevailed over Elikim, referring to the angel of Esav, and with people, and you prevailed, Sarisa, you were above them. Star. The diak is Sarisa im Elikim, that Yisrael, which is the higher daga, not of the Yaakov, which we speak of now, but the Avodah V'Yid Shabbos is above the level of Shem Elikim. Yeah, clear? V'oz meir etzloi Shem Havayim, and a Yid on Shabbos is not entrenched in the Avodah of Avedis Habirudim, which is the result of the Tzimtzum and the concealment, Shem Elikim, V'Ychal Elikim. So what's made, what illuminates? To what level of Elikus is he connecting and absorbing and basking in Havaya? And what's Havaya? Havaya is Hoya, Heva, V'Yekechal, past, present, future all at once, meaning beyond creation. V'Yachanasa, beyond Shem Elikim, Bereshis Bara Elikim. V'Yachanasa, L'mayim B'Seider HaTeva, a Yid on Shabbos is completely beyond the order of nature. Not sure what that adds to, maybe just further elaboration on already having said, it's beyond nature. It could be the diak in the Malim is Seider HaTeva, another diak, not just nature, but the order of nature, whatever that implies, I don't know. Anyway, at any rate, it's on Shabbos, so what's the pasuk saying? That Azai le'ra omel b'Yisrael. So on Shabbos, Hashem doesn't see toil, because on Shabbos we're not engaged in the toil to rest, the nitzutze kedusha that are embedded in Teva. Given Shaveda, the Mashabas, Mashabas is not about refining the world. That's the reason why also b'Shabbos one cannot extract the bad from the good on Shabbos. Why? Because b'Pnimius in Yonim, we're not elevating the sparks. He's not elevating and not toiling, but it's a day of delight. Commission is by Baruch, as we explained at length in the previous mind. However, Rabbi is in moving. Like I wanted today's story to finish yesterday is a little arichos, and they also include siches. So I think we'll stop here so that we give our proper attention to the fundamental subject that we began yesterday.